Hello and welcome to the Larger Than Necessary First Player Token podcast. This is episode 124. My name is Chris.
My name is David.
How are you doing, David?
I'm alright, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's good to be back.
It is.
Good to be back. We're saying that a lot. It's
I know.
good to be back.
I've missed it though.
We have missed it.
Yeah.
Pavel's not missed it. He's still not here.
I know. He's still
People are
off.
going to start thinking that he's like a mythical creature.
A mythical Eastern European beast.
Yes. I've played a game like that, actually. Right, we're going to talk about some video games. We're just going to cut to the chase, I think.
Yes.
So let's get started on something that I think I backed on Kickstarter. Now here's the thing: I've just looked through my Kickstarter backing list. You know, you got your profile, you can see a list, and it's all in the order of when you backed it, right? So I backed Shenmue 3 before I backed the original Gloomhaven Kickstarter. That's how long ago this was.
That's pretty nice.
Like that's how long this game was in the pipeline for. So it's literally years before we actually got it. So we actually got it towards the end of November, I think it was. And I've been playing it like off and on over the past sort of 2-3 months, and I'm only about halfway through it, I think.
Right.
I mean, I'm still in the first part of the game. If you've played Shenmue 3, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's the sort of the first village bit that you're in. You do seem to spend quite a lot of time there. I'm still there, but I'm literally just about to leave. I was going to leave the last time I played it, but you know, the in-game date on it was a day before my actual birthday in real life, and I thought it'd be quite a good sort of a good ceremony thing if I left on my birthday. But yeah, Shenmue 3. We were talking about this before we started the podcast, and I'm not going to go into too many details about what Shenmue actually is. You've either heard of it or you've not. It was a pretty groundbreaking RPG at the time, mainly because it didn't do all the things that people expected of RPGs, and the trend has continued in Shenmue 3. This is still a Shenmue game, is all you can really say about it.
Well, that's what everybody wanted, I'm sure. So.
Well, that's it, and that was the big worry. The big worry about it was that Shenmue 3 would become a modern RPG, and it would be like, you know, in the vein of like The Witcher or something like that, or something similar to it. But I mean, they had to keep that like original Shenmue feel to it, which is really like, I mean, the original Shenmue, we like to just call it Japan Simulator, because you are just walking about in Japan, just doing everyday things for the most part. There is obviously a story running through it, and Shenmue 3 continues that story, and it's a story that people have been waiting like 20 years nearly for the final part of, and they finally got it thanks to Kickstarter. But you run through this whole story about Ryo. This is the main character that you play as. He's this young martial artist, and his dad gets killed by this mysterious martial artist. And there's this whole story about these dragon and phoenix mirrors that still doesn't really make sense to me in my head. I mean, you did wonder if, you know, the game was going to go down some weirdly mystical route at some point, and it did at the end of Shenmue 2. But everything else through Shenmue 1 and Shenmue 2, there was nothing particularly mystical about it other than the just, you know, wise old martial artists and all that kind of thing. You know, that sort of Far Eastern mythic stuff that goes on in these kind of things. But yeah, it's definitely a Shenmue game. And I'm enjoying it. Obviously, it's had graphical upgrades from its predecessors, and you would hope so. There's still some like one thing that's really weird about it is like the main menu, where like when you load the game up, the main menu looks like something from 20 years ago. I find it looks worse than the Dreamcast one did. It's just very static. There's nothing about it. There's nothing to it at all. It's just like there's a background picture and a start the game in like a very basic font. But obviously, like, yeah, there's graphical upgrades. Ryo has slightly more expressions than he did in the previous games, just slightly, I would say. He was never a particularly expressive man, and there's a bit of a running joke because my girlfriend sat to watch me play through quite a lot of these Shenmue 2 in particular, and now Shenmue 3. And there is a bit of a running joke now where, because Rio likes to repeat everything that people say, and it would always just be something really like simple. So somebody would mention a bicycle and Rio would go, bicycle. And we have a bit of a joke with ourselves now, because like sometimes somebody says something just really ordinary and we'll just go, toast. Like, and he still does these things, but I would say it's less so now in Shenmue 3. They've kind of given him a little bit more personality. He gets angry at one point. Which is, a step up from the robot that we're used to. But yeah, what they've done is, and I think that they've done it really well, is that they've kept all the Shenmue-ish stuff. You are still walking about speaking to people. You're not asking about sailors anymore, as you did in the original Shenmue, but you're still walking about in this village and you're asking people things just to get clues for where other things are. But they have put some sort of modern elements of RPGs in, but what's good about it is they haven't overdone it either. So there's little mini games and things like that. So, I mean, if you need to go and earn money, it's not like in Shenmue 1 and 2 where you were kind of forced to go and do a job that took like half your playtime in order for you to get paid a small amount of money.
That's what I was going to ask. That was one of my questions, was like, what's your first job?
Well, your first job is chopping wood.
Excellent.
But like, you can do it in small bursts, which is a better thing, and it's something, because people are impatient these days, and what they want is to earn the amount of money that they want without it taking up their entire gaming session, if you see what I mean. So you can chop wood and it lasts like 2 or 3 minutes or something, but you get paid for every log that you chop, but also the more clean the cut, so the more in the center that you get it, the better.
Right.
And what's really good is that in one of the log chopping spots, if you hit a log perfectly, it starts to play the Joy theme from Shenmue 2.
Oh.
The one that's like the heavy metal one where it goes, yeah! Like, it's really fucking cool. It's just like a nice little sort of like nod to Shenmue 2 in that sense. But you go fishing, Dave, which is
Excellent.
something I think you'd be interested in.
Very much so.
And you enter a fishing competition. And there's like a little sort of side mission to go and catch all the different types of catfish. And, if you do so, you get I mean, this is a controversial point, but you get like a nice t-shirt and a jacket that Rio can wear. And that's kind of controversial because Rio was always this guy with the blue jeans and the brown leather jacket and the white t-shirt. So you can actually change his clothes in this game. Which, risky. I'm sure, risky doing that. It's optional. It's optional, of course, because, you wouldn't want to force that on anybody, because there are some hardcore nerds out there that would be totally against that idea. But yeah, like I say, you're walking about. They've kind of updated things from the original Shenmue in terms of like you can still go to the capsule toy machines. There's lots of them about, but it's not that like you're trying to gather all the Virtua Fighter characters and all the kid versions of them to go to a pawn shop and trade it in for 300 yen or whatever. They've speeded the process up a little, so there's actually very, very small groups of them. So you go to one capsule toy machine, there's only like 6 different toys in them, but one of them will be very rare.
Right.
And they've kind of sped up the whole actually buying the capsule toys. You don't just sit and turn the thing every time you put yen into it. Like, it's not like that anymore. It just kind of it becomes more instant, so that you can just like plow your money in and just keep getting capsule toys over and over again until you get what you need. I mean, I don't know. I'm in two minds about that change, I'll be honest.
Right. So are you back in Japan? Because I know nothing about this.
Oh, no, you're not back in Japan. No. So Shenmue 1 took place in Japan, and Shenmue 2, Rio goes to Hong Kong.
Yes.
But then in this one, I think he's further into mainland China now. And he's in a sort of little village out literally in the middle of nowhere. And that's how Shenmue 2 ends. You end by getting to that village. And now in Shenmue 3, so 20 years in real time it took for this game to come out, but it's literally the next day in Shenmue 3 from when Shenmue 2 ended. You're in that village, and you're continuing your investigation into your father's murder and the mysterious Lan Di, the man who killed him. And you find out some like interesting. So interesting story things. Like they've really pushed the story on, and you feel like you're now getting somewhere with the story of Landy and your father and how they're linked, because it was always a kind of mystery about why was he killed? Who is this Landy character? And you find out more about how the Rio's father and Landy are linked to each other, and it's pretty cool in that sense. The game still has that slow pace into it, which is good because that's what makes it a Shenmue game. It's not like you run from one section to the next to the next to the next, and you can do it as fast as you want. Sometimes you do have to wait. Sometimes you just have to go and walk about the village and find other things to do. And there's plenty of stuff to do. I mean, I think one of the complaints about Shenmue 1 and 2, and Shenmue 1 in particular, I think, was that sometimes you would have to wait an entire day and there wasn't much that you could do in that day. You could go to the arcade machines, but there's only so many times that you can play Super Hang-On and get really annoyed with it before you're just like, well, sod this. I'm just going to leave Rio standing in the street while I go and make a cup of tea. So there's more things you can do. So you can go... One of the sort of more modern things they've done to it is that you can level up your skills in a sense. So you can level up your stamina and you can level up your kung fu by going to like a dojo and fighting other martial artists, or you can go and do horse stance, just stand in front of a pole with your knees bent, and you just have to keep tapping a button to keep his knees in the right position and his arms straight out and that kind of thing. But there's also 1-inch punch. You can do that to level up your kung fu, these kind of things. And they're all just kind of timing based little mini games, but they're kind of essential as well. You have to be like, you really have to level your kung fu and your stamina up if you're going to be doing some of the fights in this game, because some of the fights are really difficult. And that's a big change as well from Shenmue 1 and 2. The fights are actually, they are more difficult, but they're in a way, they're easier as well, because it's not just about button combinations. The button combinations are there, but you can set sort of quick key, like hotkeys almost, to just do certain moves at certain time. Like, so you just press like R2 and you'll do a certain move, rather than pressing square, triangle to do that move. If you see what I mean. So, and you can change the list of moves that you want to do, so you can really sort of personalize it for yourself. But yes, like I say, it's Shenmue 3. It's what we wanted. It's what we wanted. It's a thumbs up for me, because like it still feels like a Shenmue game, but it feels like a modern one, and they've really sort of hit the nail on the head with it. And like I say, I'm working my way through it slowly. Just sitting down, having 3-4 hours, maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. I'll just sit and play a little bit more of it. But that's unusual for me, because usually I would just forget about a game after, not playing it for a couple of weeks. I'd forget it existed. But I keep coming back to it, because it's just sometimes it's just exactly what you need. It's just this plod through this world, have these little bits of action every so often. It's just exactly the kind of game that you need to play sometimes. So yes, Yu Suzuki's Shenmue 3 is it's good. If you're a fan of the Shenmue series, if you've thought about getting it, I would just recommend, just go for it. Like, I mean, there's a lot of sort of different opinions online about it, but I would say that no, it is a Shenmue game. There's nothing that makes it not a Shenmue game. If you see what I mean, like, are there, it's definitely a Shenmue.
Are there still QuickTime events?
Yes,
good.
There are, but they're kind of few and far between. They're not as they're not like in Shenmue 1 and 2 where everything totally relied on it, but definitely there have been some little cutscenes and you have to press the buttons at the right time. And but it's also I think it was the same in Shenmue 1 and 2, so like it didn't overly punish you for failing them. You would get to go back and have another go at it straight away. So they've kept that sort of side of it. So it's almost like the quick time events are almost irrelevant. Yeah. But they are there. Yes, it is a staple of the Shenmue series, and they still exist.
You know what I always thought would be amazing, and I don't know where I got this idea from, was if the ending you got in Shenmue 3 was somehow determined by whether you caught that ball or not at the at the beginning of Shenmue 1.
That would be amazing if that was like a critical decision in the game. Now, unfortunately, it is unfortunate in that obviously they'd intended on making Shenmue 3 like 20 years ago, and between Shenmue 1 and 2, you could keep all the stuff that you had. But you can't do that, and you don't keep anything from Shenmue 2 into Shenmue 3. Even though there is a PlayStation version of Shenmue 1 and 2 now, you still don't carry anything over with you.
Oh,
So
no cassettes.
that's unfortunate, Dave, because it would have been amazing if they'd put something like that into the game.
You'd be like, oh, I've still got all my dried fish. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I've still got my cassette player and the 15 sets of AA batteries I bought just so that I could get a go in the raffle. So yeah, it's got a lot going on with it. There's a lot more to it than I've described. But I mean, like I say, all I really wanted to say about it is that it is a Shenmue game, and I'm glad for that. And I'm wondering, I haven't heard anything from Pavel about Shenmue 3. I think the last time I asked him, he hadn't played it yet, so I'm not sure if he's played it yet. But it would be good to see hear his opinions on it when he finally shows up, because he's quite a big Shenmue fan as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see. I have to finish Shenmue 2 first, unfortunately, before I can play this one. I might have to buy it again.
Just still got your Dreamcast saves.
I do, but I think I'd have to start again. I don't know if I can. Oh, yeah. Well, it's on. You can buy it for the PlayStation 4, can't you? Shenmue 2.
You can, yeah. But the thing is, you have to buy Shenmue 1 and 2, and you have to play through Shenmue 1 first.
Really?
Yes. You can't just skip straight to Shenmue 2, because that would be sacrilege.
Ah, man. Well, one day, I'll add it to the list.
Okay, so Shenmue 3, that is by YesNet or YSNet. Obviously, Yu Suzuki is the genius behind all of that. Came out, finally got the Kickstarter version towards the end of last year. It is out there. It's out in the shops and things. So, yeah, go pick up.
Nice.
Right, Dave. You want to tell me about a game I've never heard of?
Haha, very clever. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
sorry about that. That was for the dads.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a game called Unheard.
Way.
It's by a company called Next Studios, and it came out in March last year. And I played it a little while ago, but it's quite an unusual little indie game, so I thought I'd give it a bit of a mention on here. I've got my notes for it. right at the very top of my notes, it says, Phoenix Wright cross-examine a parrot. I have no idea why I've written this. I don't know how that's related to this game in any way.
Was that a dream you had?
Oh, I know what it means, because there is a Phoenix Wright game where you have to cross-examine a parrot. But I don't know. Whatever I was thinking has since left me. But Unheard itself is a game where you listen, or more accurately, it's a game where you eavesdrop on conversations. You're a what did they call it? An oral investigator. You're an investigator. Wow. Okay. And you're dropped in kind of blind into a situation, like a location, for a short period of time, where there's a number of conversations sort of going on concurrently. And these conversations relate to a crime that either has taken place or is about to take place. And it's your task to, first of all, identify all the participants, because you don't know who they are initially. So all the people that are there, you have to figure out who they are, like name them basically. And then the game asks you, there'll be like 3 questions that you have to answer correctly about this crime. And that's the core of it. That's what you're doing in this game. The way it works, it's a sort of top-down view. You're presented with a blueprint kind of style layout of a building, like it might be a police station or something like that. So there's a bunch of different rooms, and you can move your little avatar around in this layout, and you can only hear what's being said and the noises, background noises and so on that are in the room that you are in, if you see what I mean.
Right, okay. Yeah.
And the other people who are there are just represented by little circles. That's all you can see of them. So that, because you're not meant to know who they are initially.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example, like I don't remember 100%, but the second one was kind of like an art heist type scenario where there was a painting it turns out has been, I think, replaced with a forgery at some point, but you don't know when this has happened, and I think there might have been a double switch, and there's all sorts of stuff going on, and you have to sort of, like, one of the questions you would have to answer at the end is like, who has the painting, the real painting, for example.
Yeah, okay, yep.
Yeah. And yeah, that's what you do. The first thing you will do is try and figure out who everybody is. There's like at the bottom of the screen, there's like a sort of timeline bar, a bit like when you're playing like a video or music. So there's play, pause, and you can drag the little scrubber thing forwards and backwards to different points in it. So you can jump forward in time, you can jump backwards in time, and it's, to start with, it's about 3 minutes, and I think the longest one is maybe around 15. I would say thereabouts. They get longer as you go through the different scenarios, and that's what you're doing. You're just listening to people talking. Quite often they're on the phone or doing stuff like that. There's just a lot of like surreptitious conversations going on. You see the little circles moving about as people go from room to room as the time passes on the bar. Initially, you figure out who they are. To begin, some of them will be easy because they might say the other person's name. But there won't be much. Like to start with, there might be one or two of those. But after that, you have to figure out by context. I mean, it gives you a list of names to choose from. It's not like you don't have to type it in or anything like that.
Right, yeah.
Really, you're making a reconstruction in your mind of exactly what's going on here. And then you try and answer the questions at the end. It's a little bit... Comparisons have been made with the Return of the Obra Dinn. There are some similarities, but I would say they are different games. They're not... it's not like a rip-off of it or anything like that. Just the whole atmosphere of it is different. And this is more like solving something, whereas Obra Dinn was... It's hard to describe, but like there was a lot of like... I remember I said with Obra Dinn, there was a lot of like... You had to use a lot of like conjecture where in your reasoning, whereas it's not really like this in this game. It's much more definite what's going on. And you should be able to have a real good idea by the end of it exactly what's happened. And it's I'll tell you, I've been trying to like write down a highlight for every game that I talk about. And the highlight of this game was for sure listening to two guys who don't know each other having an awkward conversation in the toilets of the art gallery whilst smoking kind of illicit cigarettes. It was just unintentionally hilarious. It's a bit like listening to the radio. So they have to do all the sound. The actors are having to do all the sound effects. So it's all like, yeah, man. So in there, they'll be making. Soon it will be illegal to breathe. Know what I mean? Like, I hear you, dude.
Well, and was this relevant to the case by any chance?
Not really. They just both they were both there for sort of like unscrupulous reasons, and they both, like, I think one of them went to the toilets to make a phone call, but then this other guy comes in, so he has to sort of stop doing that, and then they have this sort of awkward conversation because they're both not really meant to be there.
Right? Yeah.
It was just really, really. It wasn't meant to be funny. It just was.
Now, if Pavel was here, he would say that this sounds like a very Dave game.
I suppose. I mean, if
it had fishing in it, you would probably be jumping for joy.
It's pretty cool. It's something a bit different, right?
Yeah.
And it's not super expensive. I would totally recommend people check it out. It's not a long game, for sure. There's 5 scenarios plus a DLC. scenario, which I haven't played yet, which is meant to be really, really good. It's a free DLC. But the first scenario is basically the tutorial, so really you've got 5 to do. So, you could, in theory, play it all in one sitting if you were. I mean, I wouldn't, but, if you were so inclined, you could. But I really, really enjoyed it. Totally recommend it. It's Windows, macOS, PS4. Yeah.
Oh.
Check it out.
I'm a wee bit surprised because it definitely sounds like a sort of PC game, so I'm surprised to hear it's on PS4. But
so the internet tells me. I played it on.
So the internet tells you.
I played
I
played it on the PC. On Steam, yeah, it is a sort of Steam kind of game for sure.
I mean, it sounds pretty cool. I mean, who doesn't love a sort of detective game?
Right.
Especially one where you can eavesdrop on conversations.
It's so difficult to make detective games, just in general, and this one kind of works. Yeah, I would say it does.
Right. Well, thanks for that, Dave. I believe you've got something special for me now.
Games Roundup. I heard people like these.
Right. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Yeah, we heard good things about the last one you did.
I did briefly play. Well, I say briefly for about 40 hours. The Outer Worlds. An RPG by Obsidian. I believe it's the team who worked on New Vegas and also Knights of the Old Republic 2 as well. And you can totally tell it is so New Vegas-y and not really in a very good way. I'm not going to say a lot about this. Other than it's not very good and I wouldn't recommend. It's a shame, but I mean...
It's a bit weird because the Outer Worlds sort of popped up and everybody was like, oh yeah, this is going to be amazing, and then I heard very little about it after that.
It's so old-fashioned. Like, there's stuff in it that I'm like, this would be good. This was good in the 90s. I would have thought this was amazing. Like things like if your intelligence is high enough, you can choose a slightly different option in the conversation. But the outcomes are so boring and it's just not that exciting anymore. That was cool once, but the world has moved on, I feel, and there's just a lot of it. And the only other thing I want to say about it is that this is a game, an RPG, where one of the upgrades you can take for your character is one that allows you to walk 20% faster. And I think that's a damning indictment of any game.
Yeah, it definitely feels like an early Fallout type of upgrade.
It's like, I stopped even bothering choosing upgrades for my character. Like it just wasn't that interesting. So it's a shame. I mean, there are good things about it, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, unfortunately. But what I would recommend, and what I've been playing an awful lot of recently, is The Witcher 3, which I went back to primarily because I was watching the TV series, which is actually pretty good. And also, a good friend of mine was like, you need to go and back and play it, because I did start playing it and gave up very quickly. So I went and gave it another crack, and it turns out he was right. It is actually as good as everybody says it is. Even though it's 5 years old now, it's still a brilliant, brilliant game. And so much has been said about it. But what I will say about it is that one of the things I really liked about it is one of the first things you can do in the game very early on is chase a goose. And that's something I approve of immensely. Remember we were talking about Gwent, and you were saying, you had to go and get all the cards from the shopkeepers?
Yes.
Man, oh man, were you right? What a freaking chore.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, I was actually talking about Final Fantasy VIII, I believe, but...
oh, no, you were, yeah.
Yeah, that's right,
sorry.
I was. And it's,
man.
I forgot, it's the same in The Witcher 3, yeah.
It's... I mean, the Gwent or Gwent is fine, but that side of it is so tedious, man. Every time I find a shopkeeper, my heart sinks. I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah. I know what you mean. It's like I say, when I was playing... I mean, I have played The Witcher 3. I didn't play it anywhere near as much as I think a lot of other people did. But I was the same with that as well, yeah, find a shopkeeper. And it was the same in Final Fantasy. As soon as you found somebody that wanted to play that card game with you, you were just kind of like, oh, for God's sake, well, that's me spending the next hour here playing this guy then. You know?
But, what else? Right. Remember when I was talking about Horizon and I was moaning about games that make you walk alongside somebody while they give you a bit of
I remember it distinctly, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
This happens in The Witcher. Yeah.
Yes.
They like chat quite often, and you have to walk. You walk with them, and they chat to you. But here's the thing, right? If you walk, they walk. If you walk quickly, they walk quickly as well. It does not lock you out. If you sprint at full tilt, they fucking sprint. It's amazing. It is like the best thing ever. I was so impressed.
That's what these games need.
Yeah,
because like Red Dead Redemption 2 suffered from this as well. I mean, they had that whole thing about the game was slightly more slower paced and things like that, but you definitely had those sections where you were just kind of trotting along on a horse speaking to somebody and you're like, we're on horses, let's sprint. Like,
it's the best thing ever. I really hope I hope they take this approach and carry it over to Cyberpunk 2022, which has been delayed as we all know, but very sadly. But I'm now really looking forward to that game. I'm definitely going to buy it. Mm-hmm. Got a little game for very quickly.
Yep. I've been waiting for this. Let's go.
Right, it's not that. Don't get your hopes up too
Dave's
much.
game shows.
Right, we're going to play a little bit of guess the prices of things in the shop in The Witcher. What I've done is I've taken a loaf of bread and kind of normalised that at £1. And then converted all the Witcher prices. So
wow, you spent a lot of time on this.
Chicken sandwich. How much? Given the loaf of bread's £1, how much do you think for a chicken sandwich?
A chicken sandwich, right? Okay, so in real life, a chicken sandwich would cost you more than a loaf of bread.
Yes.
So I'm going to say higher.
It is. You want to have a guess?
I'll go
in pounds.
£2.50.
No, £7.75.
Oh, Jesus Christ, that's an expensive chicken sandwich.
How much do you think it is for a whole chicken?
A whole chicken? A fiver.
£7.75.
Oh, come on. I was hoping it would be less than the chicken sandwich.
What if it's a whole chicken but it's been roasted?
Ah. Let's go for £12.50.
No, £5.25. It's less than a raw chicken for some reason.
It's less than an actual... right, okay. Okay, that's interesting.
Single egg?
A single egg.
One egg.
One egg. Right, let me think. What could you do with an egg in this game? Let's go for... It's going to be something stupid, I already know. Right, I'm going to go for £1.
Oh, very close. £1.50.
Ah, £1.50, okay.
And you can buy a single pierogi as well for 50p. Right.
50p for a pierogi and £1 for an egg? Oh, is that a single pierogi?
Just
right,
one,
okay.
yeah.
Just what? Just one, not a plate of pierogi.
No. Right, we're on to the drinks now.
Okay.
A jug of water?
A jug of water. 50 pence.
£2.25.
Oh, come on.
Pint of beer.
Pint of beer will go £3.50.
Oh, £3. That's
£3.
Yeah,
oh,
very close. That's pretty good as well, I thought, price wise.
Yeah, that's quite reasonable.
Bottle of whiskey.
That's less than real life.
Yeah, exactly.
Bottle of whiskey, £6.50.
£17.
£17.
Right, bottle of vodka.
All right. Well, this is a Polish game, so let's go 25 quid.
No, £4.25. It's cheaper than the ham sandwich.
They don't think much of their own drink.
There we are.
So if you're going into a bar in Witcherland, your cheap meal is going to be a single pierogi and a bottle of vodka.
Yeah, or just buy a roast chicken.
No, but a roast chicken as well. Yeah, that's true.
Just
well, I enjoyed that, Dave. I enjoyed that. That's giving me some good insight into fantasy medieval lifestyle.
It just always amuses me. They always have all these random things in shops that are just so unnecessary. It's like there's so much.
Yeah, there is so much shit. That's one thing, actually. That's one thing Shenmue 3 suffers from. There's too much stuff in the shops. And some of it you need, and it's not entirely clear which things you need, but they're just like random bits of crap. It's like, here's a green vase. You know? it's like, well, do I need this? Is this something I'm going to need in the future when I leave this village? So I'm kind of suffering from that gamer thing of, should I just like, you know, go and chop wood for the next 2 hours and then buy everything in the shop?
Buy everything, yeah.
So yes, Shenmue 3 does have that, which is it was a weird decision because you could barely buy anything in Shenmue 1 and 2.
Yeah, I know. It's like most of it was pointless.
Most of it was pointless, and it was just so that you could have a go in the raffle or collect all the cassette tapes.
Yeah, they were worth it.
Right, so that's your games roundup.
Yep, for this week.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm looking forward to the next one. I hope we have another game show. Which game show are you going to base the next one on?
I don't know, Mr. and Mrs.
Mr. and Mrs.
That's going to work.
We'll get Pavel in for this. Right, okay. So let's talk about something that isn't really a video game. This is another Kickstarter thing. I do go a bit Kickstarter mad. Not as mad as Pavel. Do you back anything on Kickstarter and have like Pavel as a friend on it or anything? Or I don't know how it works.
No, I'm not his Kickstarter friend.
You're not his Kickstarter friend, because basically I get like emails, like 3 or 4 emails a week saying that Pavel's backed some bizarre RPG book.
That's why he has to work
or
so
something
much.
like that. I know. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, well, actually, I already do know. He buys all this stuff and doesn't do anything with it. It just sits in his house. But yes, this is another Kickstarter thing. But like I say, it's not a video game. It's a retro gaming console. So I saw this, and I know there are a lot of other things out there like it, but this is the Retrostone 2. As I gave Dave a quick flash of it on camera earlier, but you can, Dave, this isn't now turned on, so you can kind of see, if I do this,
oh yeah,
kind of see that's like the menu screen. So you can see what this thing looks like is a Game Boy, essentially, and it does look like a Game Boy. It's grey.
The original,
it's got the
a bit
little
like the
D-pad
original
on it.
Game
The
Boy.
original. It's about the same. It's the same size as well, I would say. But it has more buttons on it than a Game Boy. It looks like a Super Nintendo controller on the front, essentially. It's got shoulder buttons on the back. There are 4 of them. They are a wee bit fiddly, but yeah, they do work. But if Dave can see the screen here, it has a number of emulators on it.
I see it now.
Now, the emulators that Dave can see on the screen here. So what we've got, the ZX Spectrum.
Yep.
We've got like Super Nintendo. There are the original PlayStation. There's MS-DOS option on it. The NES, the Mega Drive or Genesis, depending on what part of the world you come from. Game Boy, Atari 2600. There's an Amiga emulator on it. So this is just the main menu that I'm showing Dave here when you start it up. Now, before we go any further, we'll say there is a grey area with these things, because whereas emulators aren't, as far as I'm aware, there is a definite grey area surrounding them, in terms of like you can emulate the thing, but the games themselves, you cannot actually give them away.
No.
But
Also,
anybody,
I was going to say, also interestingly, sometimes the firmware is not legally distributable as well.
yes,
For example, for the Amiga emulator.
Yes, and yes, definitely for things like the original PlayStation, there are those things were not provided with this console, shall we say? Now, because of that, there is a bit of sort of technicality with the console itself. So, if you don't really know what you're doing with these things, you're probably going to be a wee bit confused and annoyed if you were to back this on Kickstarter and get it, because like I say, the grey area surrounding games and things like that, how you get games for that, for any particular console onto that thing, is entirely down to you. And you do have to fiddle around with things, and it basically runs on like a version of Linux, and you have to kind of go into that version of Linux and copy things over and stuff like that, and sometimes it's not super clear. So if you're not sort of like technically minded with these things, you're probably going to struggle with this. You can learn how to put games onto this console, but if anything goes wrong with this console, and I'm not the most technically minded person, you're going to struggle with it. And I'll say that there was some issues with it. Now, like I say, it's been made by some guy in France. That's all I know about him, really. He's put this whole thing together. It is running on what is it they call it again? The Retrostone Pi 2, so it's like a variation of the Raspberry Pi. It's got an A20 processor, which is, I don't know what that is, but it's got 2 cores, 1 gigahertz. And it's all on a tiny little circuit board. It comes with like a bunch of USB ports. It's got an HDMI port on it. It's got an Ethernet slot as well. It charges with a micro USB. Fairly straightforward. There's volume control on it. You can put your headphones into it, all that sort of stuff. Now, what that kind of means is that you can plug it into your TV, and because it's got 3 USB ports on it, you can plug controllers into it as well, and if you can get them up and running. So you get, like, I think PlayStation 3 controllers, you can kind of get them to work on it. I haven't tried it yet, but I think that's the idea. Definitely, I've used PlayStation 3 controllers for other things other than PlayStation 3, so it wouldn't surprise me if those are the controllers that you can use on it. But essentially, you could plug it into your TV and sit and play Mario Kart with your mates on the couch. Just like you did back in the 90s.
Yeah,
which was the thing that... Exactly, and it was the thing that drew me to it, was just the idea of doing stuff like that. Now, obviously, I can't go into details about the games and stuff that I've played on it. It comes with some games, which are games that have been made by people to run on those emulators, so there is no grey area around that. But obviously, I'm not going to sit here and admit to anything, but we'll just say I've had a lot of fun with this thing. I had some trouble with it when I originally got it. There are some software issues, and obviously because of what it is, and because it's running on like a sort of modified version of Linux, and it's a Raspberry Pi sort of thing, it's going to have some issues. They're not the most stable things in the world, and mine just wouldn't really work properly. It just kept crashing at first. Now, they were quite quick to fix these things. It wasn't happening to everybody's console, but I made a little video to show the guy what was going wrong with it, and then a bunch of other people saying, yeah, I'm having this exact same issue. So they have updated it, but what it's meant is that they've disabled some features on it while they try and figure out what's going on. So I can't actually plug the HDMI into it. It doesn't work. Apparently they're working on getting that fixed. I haven't tried plugging controllers into it, but I've not needed to because I've just been keeping it to myself and sitting on the couch playing what looks like a Game Boy. But yeah, it's if you can kind of overlook that, it functions and it runs all these old consoles. And I mean, I've reeled off a list of consoles there to you, Dave, and I've showed you the menu. That's not all the emulators that are on it. It only shows emulators that you have things installed for.
Right.
So there are actually quite a lot of different emulators on there. For loads of consoles going straight back to the 80s, they're pretty much all there, to be honest. And it's pretty incredible. Now, let's say this is a Retrostone 2, which implies that there was a Retrostone 1, which there was. So they've done some sort of like hardware upgrades, software upgrades, that kind of thing on the Retrostone 2. Wasn't the cheapest thing in the world. I think how much did mine cost? It was €129 for what essentially looks like a little Game Boy. But because at first I was like, I really want to back at that level for this little retro gaming thing, which you know, if you know how, you could run all these consoles and stuff like that on your PC. But I'm actually quite glad I did, because it's just a portable little thing, and you can play all these games from your childhood essentially on it. So yes, it's been pretty good. I have enjoyed it. I think the main issue I have with it at the moment is that it can kind of lag and stutter every so often. But again, they are aware of that and they are trying to fix it. So it is getting support. Generally, the support's been pretty good. Like I say, when I flagged up that thing with mine just crashing all the time, within a couple of days it was fixed. So yeah, I'm quite impressed by it. It's so far has been quite a good investment. And my girlfriend will tell you that I quite often just can't help myself from, if we're just sitting on the couch watching Holmes Under the Hammer, I just turn this on. You know?
Well, you would, wouldn't you?
Well, you know, daytime TV is not the most exciting thing in the world. So, yeah. I'm enjoying the Retrostone too. It has been quite a good investment.
Yeah, it looks pretty neat.
It is.
I like the form factor, the button layout and stuff, and the D-pad, and because there have been other things that can do this kind of thing before, but that's the first one I've seen that looks like a Game Boy.
Indeed.
That I've seen.
And pretty much anytime I've brought this out in front of anybody's, they've gone, oh, I've not seen one of them in about 20 years or something like that. It's just like, yeah, it's not actually a Game Boy. You know? Although I do play Tetris on it.
Yeah. It's a great game.
Sorry, a Tetris clone. But yeah, it's one of those things. Like I've always said to people, like, you know, the guy that made Jet Set Willy's not going to come chasing you down the street because you're playing his game, without paying him any money for it. So, but yes, it's like I say, it's definitely a grey area. So just be careful what you're doing out there, folks.
Yeah, you need to get your sort of special contacts. A friend of your dad's.
Yeah,
Turn up.
Sitting with all these games.
Turn up with a load of CDs.
I think there's been a couple of like companies, like video game companies, that have started trying to crack down on a lot of these websites that are giving their games away. Essentially, I don't know how far they got with it. Though. There was definitely some lawsuits pending.
One of the big sites got the hammer put down.
Did it get shut down?
Yeah, MU Paradise, I think it was, which was running for quite a while.
Oh yeah.
I think that's
now gone.
Well,
is
it's
it?
still there, but you can't download anything anymore, I believe. So I heard.
Okay.
Not that I would ever.
The problem is that, like, you know, there's a million other sites out there, so it's one of these things that is pretty much impossible to control. Anyway,
Yeah, cool.
Yes, it's a very nifty little thing. And definitely, if you're like, you know, one of those technically minded people, you'd have a good time just playing with the settings in it, because you can plug like a USB keyboard and mouse into it and sit and fiddle about with it, and you kind of have to do that if you have to boot into the Linux thing to start copying files over and that sort of stuff. So,
does it come? Has it got like a little storage card? Is that its default?
So yes, that's yeah. So you have to put the operating system. You have to download the operating system from their website and flash it onto a micro SD card, which slots into the side of the machine. But it's also where you would put any other files that you would want to put onto it.
I see.
But I mean, even if you're not that technically minded, there is a tutorial there, and it does talk you through how to do all these things. But you know, if you're computer illiterate, you've got no chance.
There's a bunch of other. They've released a whole load of kind of mini versions of consoles that have like 20 games legally loaded onto them, and they are just emulators as well. And you can also put you could also put other files onto those consoles.
Yes, you could put other files on it if you like.
But
like, the emulators themselves are I think those are fine.
Yeah.
In terms of the law, but yeah, like you say,
but those are
firmware.
Those are more suitable for people who are not so technically minded. You just plug it into your TV, and it comes with little controllers, I think, and and it's got, you can play your Mario 3 and Mega Man 2 and whatever, all the greats.
Yeah, I'm talking about 15 years ago now, maybe, but I had a mini Mega Drive which only had 3 games on it. It was just a little plastic thing, and it was a proper like licensed thing. But it had what games did it have? It had Sensible Soccer, and I think it had Cannon Fodder and Megalomania.
Wow, what a selection!
I think those were the 3 games, and that was a great selection of games. Like, we had so many Sensible Soccer tournaments in that.
So those are all sensible games, aren't they?
I think I don't know.
Wait, Cannon Fodder? Yeah, they are.
Cannon Fodder, was that?
Yeah.
I think maybe you're right. I think it was the Sensible pack I got.
Wow.
So I'm not sure. I'm thinking Megalomania. It might not have been Megalomania, but I'm pretty sure Sensible Soccer and Cannon Fodder were definitely on that. And it was great fun. And when we accidentally covered it in beer, I was so distraught that I bought a second one.
Did you ever have or experience one of those knockoff like NES multi-game things?
Yes,
it's like
yes.
20 versions of Super Mario.
20 versions of unstable games.
Those are amazing.
Good times, Dave. Right, okay. Let's wrap up the memories there. This has been fun. I'm glad we're back.
Yeah.
So we'll give out our internets. So if you want to email us, you can do so at firstplayertoken@gmail.com. That's FIRST player token. If you want to go to our website, that is just firstplayertoken.com. Again, FIRST. You can find us on various social media sites, but Twitter is the one that we update the most, which is at 1ST player token.
That's once player token.
Thank you very much, David. And we are part of the Podnose Network,
the UK's leading entertainment podcast network.
So you can go to podnose.com. You can see a whole wide array of podcasts on there, which we are a part of, and quite happy to be so. What are you chuckling at?
You always say that bit really high. And it just reminds me of the time I pitch shifted your voice and it made it super high.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I should have been annoyed about that, but I wasn't. Okay, right, we will be back as soon as we can. We will get some board games played. We'll get a board games episode out at some point. It has been a wee while.
Yes.
We haven't done any since
oh my goodness,
since the last Tabletop Scotland, in fact.
yeah.
So we will definitely get a board games episode out to you. But until then, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.